First of all, a few words about me and myself, because I come from Stuttgart, from Germany, a worldwide known industrial valley, because in the Stuttgart is suited so many headquarters of big companies like Daimler or Mercedes and Bosch and Porsche, and I have openly to say they are already involved in a blockchain, implementing the blockchain in their products, including also in IoT and artificial intelligence. What is this about? Talking about interoperability, or why we talk about interoperability? Is it still a topic that should be discussed and evolved in the blockchain community at all? As from my experience in the last years, because I'm already more than 27 years in software development, and the last 5 years I've been involved in the blockchain and artificial intelligence so deep in most of the project in the area of healthcare and also in the supply chain. And I found that implementing a blockchain is not so easy, because hyping a blockchain in the last time, it was so many times mentioned that blockchain is a complex. The implementing is complex, it's not a blockchain at all. From the developer perspective, the blockchain is not so complex, but depends on the area where we want to implement the blockchain as a technology in their base, it should be complex. Therefore, I found the interoperability as a topic that still sustain as an obstacle or a challenge, maybe. As the colleague previously in his presentation about implementing healthcare mentioned, blockchain is not a resolver for the interoperability. That's true. But the blockchain can help to improve the all surrounding technologies, and implementation make easier and the blockchain make successful. Talking about the interoperability, or E14 on an English dictionary by Oxford, pronounced how it's, what is it about? The definition says the degree to which two or more systems can usefully exchange meaningful information via interfaces in a particular context. What that means? Meaningful information. It's much focused on this sentence. Exchanging, we already know in the last period, using technology, the exchange about information or the exchange in the data is quite simple. We can use it, and we are using all the days. But the exchanging a meaningful information between the things, between the parties, between the communities, between the ecosystems at all. It means that technology, machine to machine, or man to machine, or vice versa, have or has to find a meaningful way and the words to communicate between each other and to exchange the data or the at all information. That means to exchange the data and the most of things between the real world and the abstract world. The real world are all the things or everything that produce information in a digital form. Even humans. We are already producing information 1,000 years ago. But in a digital form, we are producing nowadays in the last some of the period. And we have to transfer it. We are communicating between each other, no matter which nations are, which language we are used, but we find always some common way, like English or German or Croatian, just any kind of language that we can understand. Or mathematics, for instance, to make a calculation. Mathematics is also a way of interoperability. It's a method of interoperability. But if we are putting that in some context, we have to put in the abstract world, in a digital form, transforming in a digital form and connecting with all the tiny parts inside the different networks, with the things, with the machines, and also the peoples around the world. That means to be interoperable, to exchange the data and information at all around the world, between the real and abstract world. Also, there are some more definitions about it. It's about the ability of information system to work together within and across organizational boundaries in order to advance the effective information delivery for individuals and communities. This is a sentence that could be found somewhere in the literature and well known by the students. They are studying some information science. But what it means, within and across organizational boundaries, that means actually there is no boundaries. We have to find a way to exchange all of those data without any boundaries and with less effort. That is the meaning of the interoperability. Going deeper to interoperability, it comes to the levels of interoperability, or how it's by definitions or by literature is split on. In literature we can find three of types of interoperability, but according to my experience I split it in 5. I put myself a freedom to extend it a little, no matter what the literature says. The first one is legal. In the legal, the colleagues, before they're making a law discussion, maybe will be much better to explain what about the interoperability in the legal environment. And environmental law, policies and procedures, and the cooperation agreements. All of those three are talking about exchanging the data and information around the world and according to the context in between different assets, so to say. The next one is a foundational, allows data exchange. Pretty clear. Nothing else. And also does not require data interpretation. What that means. On the foundational level, we have just to exchange the data. We don't have to interpret the data. We don't have to find or to know the meaning of them. The interoperability talks that we have just to find a suitable way to exchange the data without any meaning. The meaning is a context itself that could be afterwards by the different parties after the exchanging process translated into the meaningful sentence. And the next three is already the three that I mentioned already in the literature splitted. The first one is a structural. The message format standards, meaning of the data is preserved and unaltered. The data can be interpreted of the data field, at the data field level. It's the first point where the data makes sense to be interpreted on a structural level, because they are defining a standards about transferring or delivering message between the different parties inside the networks, inside the systems. And the meaning of the data is preserved and unaltered. This sentence is really, really important from our perspective. Why? Because it's talking about the immutability. The immutability is the one of the behavior of the blockchain. We already know that. I don't want to talk about the blockchain at that level. Semantic, data exchange and the codification of the data, including vocabulary. Electronic exchange of information among caregivers and other authorized parties. It's a too long sentences about a semantic. Semantic is a world of meaning. On that level, in that type of interoperability, we are talking about meaning and understanding the meaning after the data shall be transferred or transformed from digital or vice versa from analog to digital world. And also, at least one technical that tell us how the data should be or could be accepted from different parties, and what are the satisfactory and what are the meanings that one party has already received, the quantum of information from one side to another side. There are some more definitions or explanation about interoperability. It's a little boring, but just to mention. I put those two sentences from some context because the European Union law is already struggling some years ago and still struggling about the definition about interoperability. And that is the interoperability is still one very, very important part of technical decisions on the high level, on the governmental level. Now, why we're talking about interoperability? Because there are still some leakages or lackness inside the systems that are interoperable. I have just listed some of them. It is not necessary to list more because it's about 11 or 12 pages like this one. There are so many tiny parts inside the technologies that so many leakness or leakages where the interoperability obstacling. I can just put some of them. Possibility of interference, difference in architecture platforms. For instance, anyone who is already in IT, no matter if it is developers or infrastructure engineers or any kind of doing some IT stuff, they know that so many different architectures, especially in the nowadays when we have IoT, industrial IoT or Internet of Things or industrial Internet of Things. So many platforms, so many different protocols, standards are involved in the Internet of Things. And the one point that is still leaking and failing is interoperability. Making some common language, some common interface that is unified and that putting all that stuff and things together to communicate it without any obstacles inside. No unified coding systems. Someone already can say, yes, we have ISO standard, we have some different standards. Yes, we have. But also we have some substandards that in a different areas or different verticals of industry could not accept data exchange between different parties. As we already mentioned, the healthcare, the communication between insurance companies and also the patient from the different sides. It's really, really a big hole between them in the interoperability way. Some legal aspects of interoperability. You can just read it. The sentences tell us, I'm not a lawyer, and I just took from the lawyer perspective what they said on some European level, what are the legal aspects of interoperability from their experience. It's about the data and the entities that produce the data at the end, the users or the people. The next question, still again, does interoperability matter? Should we care about it? Or should we actually talk about it? Is it necessary? Still yes. First one, on the infrastructure level, many different networks. Many different networks comes from various sources. Different countries, different producers, different types of networks, so many differences. So the different networks produces the different data, different exchangeable formats. Therefore, the interoperability matter. We have to unify something inside that. No standard exists to allow them to interact with each other. We have to define some standards inside. We have to unify something. Is it possible just to say two different networks have to have something that have to exchange on the lower level? without any transforming on the way. Coders and developers' freedom. If you just listed on a GitHub more than 45,000 blockchain repositories we have, what that means? Is that interoperable? Still not. It's so many differences. No matter, it's a competing from another side. Which platform is a better, is a faster? Which platform is making some lower costs or so? What is the meaning of so many repositories? That means that we are still lack of interoperability between the blockchain technology at all. The hard sentence. Most of the blockchain, my colleagues, experts says that's not true. But I hope it's still true. Blockchain working still inside the silo. We have to put him as a technology outside the silo. It should listen outside the blockchains, not only inside its blockchain itself. We have still a situation that one blockchain just listen its own networks. Most of them just have no possibility to exchange the data between the different parts or different kinds of blockchains. The first one is on the lowest level, private and the public. It's really, really hard to exchange the data between them. But we need that. How? Probably with some open protocol or universal protocol network. What should that give to us? Some instant convertibility on smart contracts, foundational architecture, or very hardly to say, but unified blockchain operating system. Ethereum is one part of, or one of the way on that side, but we're still evolving. On the enterprise level, we have lack of collaboration. We have to improve it. We need a standardization of application development. All of us, we know in a software development, because the blockchain rely on a software development at all, how many different program languages or software development languages we have, how many technologies, how many frameworks, how many protocols, and so, databases. So many different parts. We have to put on a common way to standardize more and more. There are standardizations, but we have to put more unified. With the protocols unifying or simplifying integration with existing systems. We don't have to develop something new. We don't need a revolution. We still have the technology. We have just to unify it, to simplify it for the end user and the developers from another side. And that should, on enterprise collaboration, enable cross-blockchain transactions, interconnectivity, and became as a standardization itself. We need also to advance the cross-chain functionality with the use of multi-chain frameworks or enabling exchanging digital assets, or exchanging arbitrary data. What that means? Enabling digital assets. But still, we are producing the data. This talk now and what we are saving as a video stream is producing the data. Are those data arbitrary? We have to filter them. Are we still need all those data what we are talk about or our presentation is written? Maybe yes, maybe not. We have to find some arbitrary digital way to filter data and to exchange between the participants. Just one example of my previous work. I told that I did already a blockchain implementation in healthcare and supply chain, actually in a quality control in the production. But this is one which I published together with University of Malaga in Spain, the University of Tourism in Spain last year. It's about implementing a blockchain for tourism data. It's a very simple solution. We have the data source. The data source comes from different parties. First, we have a geographic content data. The words tells itself what it means about the descriptions, where are the places that someone want to visit, or what is the some of geographic points that could be offered by another parties. This comes to the tourist operator data. The geographic data transformed in some form, and the tourist operator offered that to the client, to the user or the visitor that want to visit some destination. This process belongs to data acquisition and aggregation. It's also called the datafication. It's a newer term that belongs to data acquisition also. In the middle of we have large stream processing at the blockchain. With datafication, put all those stream data in the blockchain. Yes, it's not possible. We have to do so many things between those two, between the large stream processing and the blockchain creation, because the scalability of the blockchain on the public level does not allow us to put all the data that are streamed with a video or any offer from the tourist operator side. In that point, we implement something called a combination of two different blockchains. It's a public and a private. It is the solution that is useful today on many verticals in the industry. Why? Because the public blockchain does not allow so many data to be stored, and is not necessary at all. We put those data and store it on a private blockchain, on a permissioned blockchain. And just a few of data we could put on a permissionless, on a public blockchain, just for the exchanging and recognizing the users on the net level. At the end, we have consumers. When we filter the data between the streams and all the private and public content, we push the data to the providers or to the clients, institutions, government bodies, anyone who wants to use the data, the consuming at the end. It's the same solution, but just spread it on the sources during the implementation, the geodata, operator data, just the sources of data, and way on the encryption and digital signing. In the middle, we have a layer of operator data analytics, databases, some connection stream processors, analytics, and so on and so on. All that apps that could help us to do something with data. On the same layer, we have also a blockchain itself. It's not as the umbrella of the system, it's inside of the system. Therefore, it helps us to solve the interoperability between different parties. If we put the blockchain as an umbrella, we just solve a part of our problems, not all. But if we are put inside to cooperate between different parties with some abilities, with a client index history, unique identifiers, timestamp records, and tourist control data, we put just in this case, and it could be used in most of the verticals or another industry. And the complete flow of that system together. What are the benefits? when we are achieving interoperability, or if we are achieving interoperability with using a blockchain, one of the blockchain solutions that we have. Reduce datafication costs, because if we have a solution how to filter the data, and before the data comes into the system, the blockchain will accept only the needed data, the data we need. Then we reduce the costs at all in the infrastructure, in the data transfer, using the telecoms costs and so on. Deploying derived intelligence. What that means? Deploying and derived intelligence, because the data has a meaning. We deploy the meaning of the data, the intelligence of the data, the solutions of the data, not raw data. If we are transferring all the data from one part to another part, understanding from one side and also once again on the other side, we have twice intelligence that derived on the different parties. Why we are doing twice? We have to do it once, and just to transfer the data we need. That's the derived intelligence. The next one is a simplifies and improve immaculate client experience, products, processes, and operations. The sentence tells itself. It's a simplifying so many processes inside the blockchain. And also the blockchain help us how, on the answer, who owns all the data? We talked so much about the security and authentication, authorization, and so on. That's the point what the blockchain solves also in the area of interoperability, because the interoperability is about the data and the owning the data. Giving people ownership of their personal data through blockchain. Also one value part of the blockchain. Transactions are secure and reliable. Security is a first point of the blockchain as a solution. Transactions can be processed 24 hours daily with never-ending story. Just in a cycle, we can put it without restrictions. And the user control their information in transactions. And also the accurate tracking. The blockchain as the basic. That was from my side. If you have a question, maybe it's a never-ending story about the interoperability, and I didn't want to talk about concrete solution if or does the blockchain concretely solve some problem in the industry, but it's still as an open question stay between us about interoperability, and the blockchain is just one of the solution, real good solution. If you have a question,